So, good afternoon, friends. Last class we discussed pressure transducers. We discussed uh, inductive type, variable resistance type, and capacitance type pressure transducer. We also discussed piezoelectric transducer, isn't it? So all those pressure, and we also studied some of one of the types of strain gauge based pressure transducer. Today we'll study a different type of transducer which is called as tactile sensor or tactile transducer. Now the meaning of the word tactile is touch. So these are the touch sensors. The best example is whatever touch screen we have on your mobiles, on your TV sometimes, and even if you are using a CNC machine tool, you have a display which has got touch type of a sensor. Of course, those touch sensors are made up of variety of based on variety of principles. Variable capacitance type touch sensors are also there. Uh, this tactile sensor that we are going to study, it has got a special or specific reference to robotic gripper, so to say. If we have a robo and which has got a gripper which is similar to your hands, and it is gripping some object and then picking it up and placing it somewhere. Now, whether it is gripped properly or not, or whether it has gripped the desired object or not, that can be sensed by using these types of tactile sensors. So these are nothing but touch sensors. मराठीमध्ये स्पर्शावर आधारित. आपला स्पर्श झाला की it generates a signal which helps us whether the object is gripped properly or not. So the principle of this tactile sensors, as you can see in the sketch, you have a fingertip, let us say, and beneath that you can find three layers. Okay, these two layers, bottom layer and top layer, are made up of PVDF, that is polyvinylidene. Just try to spell out polyvinylidene fluoride. Polyvinylidene fluoride. Polyvinylidene fluoride or PVDF. This is a chemical composition which acts as our sensing chemical, so to say. So we have got two layers of PVDF, bottom layer and bottom layer and top layer, and in between I have a soft film, which is spongy type of a film. Now, what is the typicality of this PVDF sensor? It is provided with some AC input. We are talking about this bottom PVDF layer, right? When I supply AC input to this PVDF film, what happens is that similar to our piezoelectric sensor, it will start creating vibrations with certain amplitude and certain frequency. Okay, now these vibrations are transmitted through this soft film to the top layer, okay, which is also made up of polyvinylidene fluoride. Okay, so these vibrations which are generated because of this AC input, these vibrations are transmitted through this soft film. We are talking about the case where there is no applied touch or pressure. When that touch or pressure is not applied, what happens is your generated vibrations, those vibrations will be transmitted through this soft film to this upper layer of polyvinylidene fluoride. Okay. And what you can see, it is not supplied with any voltage as such, but there are two tappings which are taken out of this top layer, which give me some output. Now, what is happening in the bottom layer? You are applying some AC input and this PVDF will be generating vibrations. You are applying AC input and it is generating vibrations. Now these generated vibrations are transmitted through this soft film to the top layer of PVDF. So top layer of PVDF is subjected to vibrations now. Okay, just focus. This top layer of PVDF will start vibrating. Now it is the reverse of what is happening at the bottom layer. This PVDF layer is subjected to vibrations. Because of the vibrations, because of the motion, the capacitance across the end plates changes. Top layer and bottom layer changes. And what happens is, it starts giving me some output. So what is happening at the bottom layer? You are giving some input, electrical input, it is giving some mechanical output in the form of vibrations. And in the top layer, what is happening? These transmitted vibrations are given to this top layer, and because of the vibrations, it is generating voltage of its own. Okay. Now this generated voltage is proportional to the vibrations it has received. Vibration amplitude and vibration frequency. Now this vibration is dependent on transmission of vibration from lower layer of PVDF to the upper layer. Okay. Okay. Once you have understood this, how the vibrations are transmitted and how the AC input voltage, this input is converted into some tangible measurable output at the top layer. Okay. Now let us apply some pressure or force on the top layer. Okay, we applied some pressure or force on the top layer. Now what is happening here? Whatever vibrations you are generating, those are transmitted through the soft film to the PVDF. Now because of the applied external pressure, these transmitted vibrations in the top layer will get affected and their vibration amplitude and frequency will change. And once the vibration amplitude and frequency changes, the output voltage also changes. Now this output voltage that is changing now is dependent on the applied pressure or applied force. Now once I carry out large number of experiments and I establish correlation between the applied force or applied pressure and the output voltage I get, I prepare a table corresponding to known pressure, known force, how much is the voltage generated by this PVDF output sensor. PVDF output I measure, so I tabulate it and then I plot a calibration curve for the known force values, and then once I calibrate this tactile sensor, then I use it for whatever application I want to use it. Suppose it becomes a finger of the robo gripper. Now that robo gripper finger, thereafter when it is used practically, then it will be subjected to some unknown pressure or unknown force, and it is trying to grip the object. You have applied force and it is the gripper is closing its fingers. Now whether it has gripped the desired object. Now what do you mean by gripped? The gripping pressure that I want or the gripping force that I want, has that much been generated? Now how I'm going to assess, how I'm going to evaluate that? Just by knowing the output voltage, because I know the relationship between the output voltage and applied force. This unknown force will be given in the form of output voltage, and as I know the value corresponding to the output voltage, suppose 1.5 volts is the output given out by the top layer. Okay, corresponding to that, how much is the pressure? Maybe 15 Newton. I know it because I have already calibrated it. And whether it is corresponding to the gripping pressure required for lifting, for gripping and lifting the object, yes. Then it will send that signal. This output signal will be sent to the controller. Yes, the desired gripping force or the desired gripping pressure is created. Now you can start lifting it. If so, the controller will accordingly send the signal to the actuator, which is actuating the arm, the forearm of the robotic arm. And then it will lift the object and place it at the desired location. If not, if the desired pressure, the gripping force is not created. What will happen? The output voltage that this PVDF top layer is generating, that will be sent to the controller. Controller will compare with the gripping force requirement for that object. If this force is less, what it will do? It will actuate. It will send a signal to the actuator of the gripper, and accordingly it will ask the gripper, or it will send a signal to the gripper. If it is a mechanical actuator, the linkages will be tightened. If it is a hydraulic actuator, the pressure will be intensified, and so that it will apply more pressure. And unless and until it reaches to the desired value of gripping force, this process will continue. So this is how for robotic application it can be used. It's not that it is only used for robotic application. It can be used for various other applications as well. Let's quickly see the verbal description. The tactile sensor are used to sense the contact with an object. They are also used in manufacturing of touch display screens of visual display unit or VDUs of CNC machine tools. Just by touching the screen, the signal will be generated. Now here the force will not be that important. So only the contact pressure, is it sufficient to actuate that button icon which is on the screen? It will run the program thereafter. So that much pressure, it will sense the required pressure, touch pressure, contact pressure. It has two PVDF layers, as we have seen in the previous slide, separated by a short film which transmits the vibration. An alternating current is applied to lower PVDF layer, which generates vibrations due to reverse piezoelectric effect. Similar, the principle is similar. Reverse piezoelectric effect. What is the forward or positive piezoelectric effect? If the pressure is applied, it will start giving me output. That is the regular piezoelectric effect. Apply pressure or force, it will start giving me output. What is the reverse piezoelectric effect? You apply voltage and get the vibrations, get the motion. Apply input voltage and get the vibrations. This is reverse piezoelectric effect. So these vibrations are transmitted to the upper PVDF polyvinylidene fluoride layer via soft film. These vibrations cause alternating voltage across the upper PVDF layer. When some pressure is applied on the upper PVDF layer, the vibrations get affected. Its amplitude and frequencies will change and the output voltage changes. This triggers a switch or an action in robo or touch displays. I told you the example. So these tactile sensors are mostly used in most of the robotic applications. Let us go to the next type of sensor transducer. These are known transducers to us, fluid flow transducers. Now, fluid flow generally measured by applying Bernoulli's principle. What this Bernoulli's principle says to us? Bernoulli's equation is nothing but an energy equation. So what is the meaning of this energy equation? Which is based on law of conservation of energy. The total energy is conserved. Means what? In a flowing fluid, what are the energies in a flowing fluid? What are the energies associated with this flowing fluid? First, pressure energy. Second is kinetic energy. Third is piezometric head or elevation, isn't it? So, if we want to have these energies in head terms, so P by gamma will give me the pressure head, which corresponds to pressure energy. How is the kinetic energy given? V square by 2G is the kinetic head, and Z is the potentiometric head. Z is piezometric head. That is based on, because of the own weight of the fluid, whatever are the, that is also called as body force. So positive forces for the flow are body forces, pressure forces, and kinetic forces. Okay, so velocity forces, so to say. So what Bernoulli's principle says, the total energy is conserved. Or if I got a conduit pipe, I got two sections, section 1 and section 2. So according to Bernoulli's principle, what it says, section 1, section 2. The energy is conserved, the total energy is conserved. Or if at section 1 I have got P1, I got velocity, pressure P1, velocity V1, and elevation Z1. And at section 2, across a pipe, I got pressure P2, velocity V2, and elevation Z2. If the pipe is horizontal, Z1 will be equal to Z2. What are the remaining terms now? Pressure head, that is P1 by gamma plus V1 square by 2G is on the left hand side, that is across section 1, will be equal to, that is what is called as conservation, will be equal to P2 by gamma plus V2 square by 2G, because Z1 and Z2 are same because the pipe is horizontal. If the pipe is vertical, okay, Z1 will be different and Z2 will be different. Okay. So this is what the conservation of energy equation says. So for fluid flow measurement, what we do is, this is the pipe through which I want to measure velocity and I want to measure discharge. I want to measure volumetric flow rate, I want to measure maybe mass flow rate, whatever is my requirement. I want to measure the flow rate. So I utilize this Bernoulli's principle. What I do, across between these two sections, I place some restriction. Now restriction could be of the form of a Venturi meter. You have a converging section, throat and diverging section. Or I provide one orifice plate. Right? So either of the two I use for measurement of flow. So what will happen now? I've got three sections. Earlier without restrictions I had section 1 and section 2. Now I have got section 1 at inlet, section 2 at throat, and section 3 at outlet. Okay. So I apply Bernoulli's equation between these three sections and I find out what are the velocity changes, what are the kinetic head changes, what are the pressure changes, pressure head changes, and if it is inclined, what will be the elevation or body force changes. And using this principle, I measure the pressure difference. What is the pressure drop because of this constriction? And this pressure drop, the pressure head, is correlated with the velocity. That means what? So let us try to visualize that equation. P1 by gamma plus V1 square by 2G is equal to P2 by gamma plus V2 square by 2G. Z1 is equal to Z2. Now what I do? I take pressure terms on the left hand side. P1 by gamma minus P2 by gamma is equal to V2 square by 2G minus V1 square by 2G. Okay, by simplifying what I get, P1 minus P2 by gamma on the left hand side is equal to V2 square minus V1 square by 2G, isn't it? So this P1 minus P2 by gamma gives me some pressure head. Now how I measure that? I have the two outlets at section 1 and section 2. I take the tapping, I connect maybe a manometer, or I connect two pressure gauges at location 1 and location 2. I measure the pressure and I get P1 minus P2 by gamma. Or I measure the pressure head, differential pressure head directly by using a manometer. So that head will be equal to, now that P1 minus P2 by gamma is equal to say H, this manometric head I have measured, some centimeter of that water column or mercury column, will be equal to V2 square minus V1 square by 2G. Now I solve. If I know the initial velocity, I can solve it for outlet velocity V2. Because left hand side is known to me, inlet velocity is known to me, I can solve this equation for V2. So, because on the right hand side, let us try to visualize, just please focus. Let us recall the Bernoulli's equation. P1 minus P2 by gamma is equal to V2 square minus V1 square by 2G. Okay, we have got the square terms. So let us take 2G on the left hand side. What has happened now? 2G has come on the right hand side. I've got 2G into P1 minus P2 by gamma. And V1 is known to me. So I can take V1 on the left hand side also. And then because square term is there, I take the square root. So ultimately V2 will be equal to square root of the 2G term, square root of pressure difference term, right? So ultimately I solve this equation for V2. So this V2 will be dependent on square root of pressure difference across the two sections. Now when I use Venturi meter, I have got different pressure head maybe, because it all depends upon the coefficient of discharge of that venturimeter. If I use the orifice plate has got different coefficient of discharge. So maybe orifice meter has got CD of 0.95 and my CD for or efficiency, so to say. If a CD is similar to efficiency. So CD for venturimeter, if it is 0.92, accordingly I put it on the left hand side. And then I solve that equation and get the velocity at outlet. Now this velocity into area of that outlet section as per continuity equation, it gives me the volume flow rate, because Q volume flow rate is equal to area into velocity at that section. This is how I can measure the volume flow rate. Similarly, I can measure the mass flow rate also by multiplying appropriately with the density of the fluid. So the quantity of fluid flow is computed by using the pressure drop measure. The fluid flow volume is proportional to square root of pressure difference at the two ends, square root of pressure difference. Just now I told you, if you solve that Bernoulli's equation, if you take the velocity terms on one side, pressure terms on one side, and because the kinetic head has got square terms, when we solve it, we have to take the square root of both the sides so that I can solve that V2 square for V1 for V2, V2 square for V2, and the square root term comes on the left hand side where I have got pressure drop term. That is what is meant by the fluid flow volume is proportional to the square root of pressure difference at the two ends of the constriction, P2 minus or P1 minus P2. So there are various types of fluid flow measurement devices being used in mechatronic systems such as orifice plate, turbine meter, or venturimeter. Let us quickly see. These are the two tappings at inlet and outlet. I have got orifice plate. In between, when I want to measure the volume flow rate across this pipe flow. So where this P2 is located, the gauge is located. See, the flow lines. If I draw, the flow lines will be like this, and through the constriction, the steam lines, we call those as steam lines, not flow lines. So what happens? The flow gets constricted here, the bari kona flow, and then it will take the original shape. When the flow is constricted across the orifice plate, this constriction will be minimum, not at the orifice throat. It will be little ahead of the orifice throat. So that is called as vena contracta. Now vena contracta is a flow plane or the plane at which the diameter of the constricted flow is minimum. Okay, so that will be slightly in front of this orifice plate, right? And thereafter the flow will assume its original shape, isn't it? When I have got a pipe full of fluid, it gets constricted and then it takes the original value. Okay, so I'll be placing this pressure tapping at vena contracta where I have got minimum area of the flow jet. Okay, so there I put the pressure gauge, or I connect this to a manometer, and then I measure this pressure difference. As I told you, by utilizing this pressure difference, I can solve that equation for velocity. And once I know the velocity, I know the area of this pipe, and I can get the volume flow rate. It has a disc with a hole at its center through which the fluid flows. It can be used for both gases as well as liquids. If you have done your heat transfer experiments, maybe you have done force convection experiment, isn't it? You have a pipe flow, you have one blower and the air is flowing through that blower, and then that flowing air is passed over the plates, and then you computed the heat transfer, convective heat transfer, and there the pipe flow that you have, the air that is coming from the pipe and which is blown over the surface where you want to compute your heat transfer rate. That airflow rate is measured by using orifice plate. When you come back to the college, just see we have got orifice plate. Even in our fluid mechanics lab, we have these flow measuring devices. Okay, the pressure difference is measured between a point equal to the diameter of the tube upstream and a point equal to half the diameter downstream. it is approximate relationship. The exact relationship is the Venn contracta, where I have the diameter of the flow jet is minimum. It is almost equal to the diameter of this orifice plate. It will be slightly less than the diameter of the orifice plate. Orifice plate is inexpensive and simple in construction, no moving parts. It exhibits non-linear behavior. It does not work with slurries. This is very important observation. For water and similar fluids, it can be used, but with slurries, it gives some error-prone results. Slurries means what? Cement slurry, cement paste. It is flowing through a pipe. In environmental public health engineering, you have the mud or the garbage. Okay, घाण जी आहे ती सगळी the disposal साठी वापरते आणि I want to process it. Let us say मी त्यापासून fertilizer बनवतो समजा तो कारखाना आहे माझा, and then I want to measure the flow rate of slurry. I cannot use orifice plate. I have to resort to some other device. There are a number of devices. The turbine meter is one such flow meter. I have got electromagnetic flow meter there. I can measure the flow rate of such things. It has accuracy of plus or minus 1.5%. So it is inaccurate to the tune of plus or minus 1.5%. We have seen this static performance characteristics earlier. So quickly we'll see turbine meter, flow sensor. The principle is very similar, very simple. Because of the flowing fluid, what happens is, this is what turbine blades. So because of the kinetic energy and the angle of twist of this turbine blades, because of the drag forces, we have studied this flow around immersed bodies in fluid mechanics. Take the case of a windmill. The air is blowing over the blades of the wind turbine rotor, and because of that air kinetic energy flowing fluid, the rotor starts rotating and it generates electricity. Similarly, when we have fluid and I have got a turbine runner, rotor, so to say, the turbine rotor will start rotating. Maybe I can have one magnet placed at the tip of the turbine blade, and I have got a magnetic pickup coil. So with each rotation, that magnet will affect this magnetic field. These magnetic lines of flux will be across this flowing fluid. Okay. So when this magnet interrupts, with every rotation, it interrupts or it breaks or it affects the magnetic field of the magnetic pickup coil. And I can have the external circuit wherein I can measure when there is flux change, constant flux change. What Faraday said, Faraday's law says, when there is change of flux, that rate of change of flux is proportional to the voltage that is induced. So that induced voltage will be measured and it will be correlated with the RPM of the turbine, and the RPM of the turbine is correlated with the velocity of flow. Okay, so this flow velocity can be measured in terms of output voltage of this magnetic pickup coil, and it can be calibrated for velocity of flow. Once I know the velocity of flow, depending upon the cross-sectional area, I can find out volume flow rate, or I can find out mass flow rate. So it has a multi-blade rotor mounted centrally in a pipe along which the flow is to be measured. The all description I already discussed. According to the magnetic pickup coil counts the number of magnetic pulses generated due to distortion of magnetic field by the rotor blades. The angular velocity is proportional to the number of pulses, and fluid flow is proportional. See, the angular velocity of the rotor is proportional to the number of pulses. Well, the number of pulses are proportional to angular velocity, it should have been put like that, and fluid flow is proportional to angular velocity. This also should be put in an opposite way. The angular velocity of the turbine rotor is proportional to the fluid flow rate, or the velocity of flow, and the number of pulses those are generated in the magnetic coil are proportional to the angular velocity of the turbine rotor. So turbine flow meter has an accuracy of plus or minus 0.3%. So electromagnetic flow sensor, similar principle. We can go through the figure. It's a commercial electromagnetic flow sensor. The principle is similar. I have got the only requirement is that I require a conductive process medium, particularly in chemical industries and pharmaceutical industries. I may use a fluid which is electrically and magnetically conducting. So once again, two field coils are there which set up the magnetic field of their own, and you have got the sensing electrodes. Now once the fluid starts flowing, the magnetic flux is interrupted. Okay, so the magnetic flux field is interrupted and it impresses the voltage across the conductors. So it develops a electromagnetic force, right? Or electromotive force or voltage in simple words. So across these two poles or magnets, I have set up magnetic field, and that magnetic field is interrupted by the conductive or the conducting flowing fluid. Now this conducting flowing fluid will interrupt or will affect the magnetic field. And as the magnetic field is affected, I have got two terminals which will give me the voltage. Now this impressed voltage is proportional to the rate of flow of this conducting process fluid. Okay, and based on that, I am correlating the induced voltage to the velocity of flow of the conducting fluid. Okay, so the principle is similar. The output voltage E is directly proportional to liquid velocity, resulting in linear output of the magnetic fluid. Now we are coming to the end of this unit 1 now. Whatever variety of sensors and transducers we have used, quickly we'll try to see this selection. It's a question that is normally asked. How are you going to select a sensor or transducer for your particular application? What we have to see, depending upon the application. Suppose I want to have a furnace, automatically controlled furnace as a mechatronic device. I need to analyze. I want to maintain temperature inside the furnace to the tune of, let us say, 1000. Now what I need to see, I want to design this mechatronic device, electric or electronic furnace or electronically controlled electric furnace, let us say, which is used for heat transfer, or which is used for, let us say, heat treatment. What I need to see, the nature of measurement required. What are the variables I want to measure? Accordingly, I should select appropriate transducers. What are the nominal range of values? Nominal values, range of values, or what is the operating range? Accuracy that I desire, linearity I desire, speed of measurement, what are the dynamic characteristics I require, what are the static performance characteristics I require, what are the reliability aspects I require, what are the environmental conditions under which this mechatronic device will be working. So we have to look at all the static performance characteristics or my requirements. For the furnace case, the nominal heat treatment temperature range, let us say it is between 900 to 1100 degrees Celsius. So that is my operating temperature range. And what will be the total range? Maybe 0 to 1400 degrees Celsius. So I need to define the range. I need to define the operating range. I need to assess how much accuracy I want of the temperature being measured. What is the linearity? What is the repeatability, the precision that I want, and how frequently the temperature changes would be there, the speed of response. A reliability also I want to assess. Based on that, I should select appropriate transducer. And what kind of output that we want. So based on that, whether I want a digital output, whether I want a pointer and scale type of output, or I want a signal to be in digital form, like, okay, I want a signal to be in analogous form. So nature of signal, the kind of filtering that I require. So based on that, I'm going to select and design my transducers and sensors. And what are the other factors? Suppose I'm going to use this mechatronic device at remote applications, whether the power availability is there. So what kind of power pack, whether I should be dependent on electricity supply from the government, or I should have my own power pack, a battery pack or a power pack. So that also will affect the design, selection and design. So, and what is the life expectancy I want in my mechatronic device? A ruggedness, whether it is to be used for rough and tough applications. Suppose one such device, ultrasonic strength measuring, concrete strength measuring device we had designed. last year or 1 year back, last year or 2 years back, with the help of from mechanical, with the help from ENDC department. So what it does is, if the old structures are there, old columns are there, an ultrasonic meter was developed, and you have to just place the sensor transducers across the two faces of the column, and then the ultrasonic signals will be passed through the concrete, and those will pass and those reflect back. So there is a transmitter as well as there is one receiver, and it is calibrated based on the strength requirements of a concrete. For uh, concrete having good strength, what is the travel time for this sound waves? It can be calibrated. And in the unknown structure, then this ultrasonic strength meter is taken there. Depending upon the travel time of the ultrasonic wave, you assess the strength value of that concrete, cement concrete. So why I'm giving you this example is that when you go to a construction site, your transducer and your entire mechatronic assembly has to be rugged because its usage will be rough and tough. So I should consider this aspect also. Whether it highly sensitive transducer I need to develop, or I should have proper sheathing, proper encasing, so that it is rugged enough so that the environmental conditions and other working conditions will not affect the performance. I should look for cost also, and I should look for maintenance. So friends, we need to study all these things in details. Next class, maybe I'll prepare the assignments and quiz questions based on Unit 1, and I'll post it on our Google Classroom. We'll have a small test, and we'll have the assignment also based on Unit 1.